Hi, I'm Lisanne Miller with W. Cushing & Company, and welcome to Third Thursday in June. I know we're all busy with Father's Day, graduations, weddings, and rug schools. However, let's take a time and just take a little bit of time and go over something that we all talk about and struggle with, animalize. So that's what we will do today. And Third Thursday is brought to you in conjunction with Rug Hooking Magazine. So this is the latest issue of Rug Hooking Magazine, and it is a great issue, wonderful cover, lots of wonderful articles, how to bind, UK hooking, how to hook with in the UK, and we've gone back to a free pattern, celebrations, and I hope that you will take advantage of it and send it in to us so that we can see it done. So please take your time, take it on your travels. There's even a Dying Summer palette by Wanda Kerr. Enjoy yourself. It's a great read on the beach and a lot of inspiration, as you can tell. And please use the free pattern because that's what it's meant for. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk briefly about Animalize. We could go on for days about it. But, you know, we always have tools. We have hooks, we have scissors, we have frames, everything. But we don't talk about the tools that we need to hook animal eyes with. The first tool that you should have in hooking animals, and this was published by Rug Hooking Magazine, this is Hooking Animals by Judy Carter, the late great Judy Carter. And while it goes into all animals, it really doesn't, it really goes into the eyes. She did an exhibition a lot of you participated in where the eyes have it, and you really should have this book in your repertoire because it goes from fish eyes to tiger eyes to hidden eyes and everything in between, and the nose in proportion to the eyes, which is very important. This is the hook piece, that's the real piece, but the nose is as important as the eyes. It creates the triangle, and that triangle is very, very important because if the nose is wrong, the eyes will not be centered, the eyes will not be correct. And then this was her show that a lot of us have seen, and it's called The Eyes Have It. A wonderful show that Judy had put together and traveled across the United States. So this is a tool in your toolbox. It really works. You have a lot of references in here, and I really feel you should have that. Here is something you can travel with. Now, I know these are children's books, but this is Baby Farm Animals. It's a golden book. And what it does is it gives you the shape of the eye. Look at the little sheep, huh? And the little mouth. It gives you the shape, but also more importantly, see the rabbit eye? The proportion to the nose. Yes, these are children's books, but they're illustrated beautifully. And they have even a donkey eye. But they also have other things like landscape and clouds in case you need them. Baby chick eyes, where the glint is in the baby chick eyes. The sow, puppies, goats, goslings, all sorts of things like that that you can do, and it travels, it tucks in with your rug hooking. So this is Baby Farm Animals. The other one that's also a good one to put in, which is a golden book, is called The Bunnies ABC. I know a lot of you like to hook bunnies. So now we're seeing what's around the eye, the proportion to the nose, how to do a half an eye, how to do just one eye and a hint of an eye. They provide keys that if you're stuck in a class, you know, when you're hooking, they provide what you need. But the alphabet goes into many, many different animals that you would not normally have, like an alligator, an ermine, a baby deer. Notice the baby deer and notice the snout. Notice how it comes, it's not just a blunt. it comes into this triangle. That's very, very important. Also, the teardrop shape of the eye, again, where's the glint? Giraffe, a fish. So this alphabet goes all the way through, lets you see the eyes and the nose, okay? Even a kangaroo, okay? An ostrich, who knew that's the shape of an ostrich eye? But their beak comes all the way underneath the eye to make it look proportionate. So these are really just different ways you tuck them in, you travel with them right to a zebra and how the stripes match up. The last one that's important is the Jolly Barnyard. And that has all the barnyard animals again. It's similar to baby farm animals, but these are not babies, they're adults. And again, it's the same thing, except it gives you a little bit more on scenery and placement. It gives you how a face is shaded with a hat, all sorts of different things like that. The cow with its nose. And again, another book, doesn't take up a lot of room, and you can put it in with your wool and your hooks. These are tools that you will need if you are going to hook animal eyes, whether they be primitive, whether they be exact. And again, in your reference library, this Hooking Animals by Judy Carter, the late Judy Carter, is an absolute must. Also by Rug Hooking Magazine. Okay, so let's look at some eyes. This is called the Philly. This was hooked by Karen Whitten. Now, if you notice, while this is abstract and a lot of different colors, this is like a fantasy piece. When it comes to the eye is important. Where is the animal looking? Is it proportionate or does it match the nostrils? Yes, it does. Look at how it's not just a round eye, it's an elliptical eye with 2 extensions on each end. It is not heavily outlined. The blue is in a U. We come into the black, and then there's the glint. The glint shows the direction of the eye. The glint can be put in with wool, yarn, string, Arctic rays, anything you would like. But you have to make sure the shape is correct. Now, like we do with the Santa faces and everything else, you leave your space for the eye and then you hook the eye last, because you have to know, is it looking in this direction? Is it going to look out this direction? These are things that you need to know. So this space here, what my hands are showing, is hooked last. So if you notice, this is not abstract. This takes in the color of a horse. When you're doing this, you don't want to do something odd. You want to make sure that the eye is the eye and it's looking where you want it to. Here is a fantasy piece. This is a fantasy line from W. Cushing. This is Rabbit, Rabbit. Now, Rabbit, Rabbit is an entirely fantasy piece, except when it comes to the eye. Once again, with the eye. The eye is important. The eye should be hooked last. So these feathers here should go in. Everything should be put in because you need to color balance in a fantasy eye to the nose. See the nose? See the proportion to the nose? See the colors in the nose? Now you can hook the eye. Now, it is not entirely wrapped. You see how this is feathered like these are. The shape is in a crescent moon. Another one here, but highlighted with things from the nose. So these go in line with each other. They complement each other, but they also complement the fantasy. This is a texture. This is not black. It is best to use a texture or a dyed piece when you're putting the black in. This happens to be After Hours, which is a black and blue piece cut very small. And if you notice, that allows you to get a little more dimension. And then picking up an alternative color from the fantasy piece, there is a U. But notice, 1 row to 2 rows. it is not simplistic. It has to shape the eye like a rabbit eye. It has to make the eye start to look in the direction you want. And then here comes the eye. Here comes the glint in the eye, which happens to be pink in this. And then the highlight of the eye are the two whites, which are just really a tail, a loop and a tail in a number 2 or 3. Okay, so here's your eye. It looks like an eye, but when you put it into the piece, it also complements the fantasy piece very nicely. Now, other things that could be done with this eye, this can be sculpted. And if you're going to sculpt your eye, you would sculpt it with the same material as this. You would hook this first, 1, 2, and you would sculpt all of this here, and you would sculpt the glint as well. And as you shear it, it would make a dimensional eye. So the eye would come forward out of the rug. So this can be hooked, or this can also be sculpted. And being a fantasy eye, it does not have to be exact, but by putting this in where you want it, then sculpting it, it brings it more as a glint and a little more forward. And if you notice, you see where this ended, and you bring your finger up, it's where the glint ends. It has to be in proportion. Proportion in an eye that's a little more realistic is the key. So if something looks off, look at your proportions. Is it proportionate to the point of the eye? Is it proportionate to the nose? Is it proportionate to the rest of the piece? Okay. We're going to go into a little bit of a primitive eye. Okay. Here we go. Primitive eye. This is a primitive eye, primitive cat. This is an older rug, and done by 3 different maiden sisters that hook this. And it's a very interesting piece in and of itself at another time, because you can tell where one stopped and one picked up. But if you look in here, one person hooked one eye and one person hooked the other eye. So one person got the shape right, okay? And they crowded in yellow, not green. They didn't put a glint. This is a very primitive eye. This was done in the 40s, maybe early 50s at the most. So here they are. They kept the shape. They put it in, but they didn't do a glint, okay? It's not proportionate. The reason why this looks a little more primitive is it's not proportionate to the nose. It doesn't go in a line to the nose. It should come to here, should be the edge of the nose. The nose should be moved over. But here, one of the other sisters, hooked this eye, did not go for the points, but made it an oval. I don't know if she was trying to turn the head maybe, or make the head turn. And then, of course, the center of the eye is not in the same shape. Again, no glint. And she did try a little bit to turn the eye, because she tried to use a little bit darker gold there. But 2 different people hooked it. It's adorable. It shows you that it's still an eye, but this is a very primitive eye. Again, nowhere to give a reference to. The triangle itself is off because of the shapes, but it's still an eye. It still is adorable. Now, you can go a little more simplistic than that. So here we have a heron's eye, okay, and an egret eye. So here we are. So in the heron's eye, okay, in the heron's eye, it's a little bit of a reverse because the beak has to come in. So the beak comes into a point. And this is important because the beak takes the place of a nose when you're hooking in a bird. So here's the end of it, and it lines up with the end of my eye. So it is almost a horseshoe, but not quite a point. It is a dyed piece because it didn't want a hard line. This has a watercolor look to it. This would have been very bad if this was just a hard yellow. So a dyed piece around the eye also gives you a softer look. So it's a softer look. It lines up with the beak. And then the inside is not black. It would have been too harsh for the piece, but it does come to a point right there. So the eye is finished, did not put a glint. Again, it's a watercolor. The eye is looking down with the beak into the water, and there you go. There you have it, okay? On this part of the eye, I'll get this down here. Okay, he's flying. He has to have some sort of an eye. Here's his beak. Again, watercolor. Changing the white to give a little bit of attention to the eye works really, really well. You can't have it mimic this eye. So in order to make it go with the rest of the rug, which sometimes you have to do, especially in fantasy or watercolor, I took a piece of the beak and I did the horseshoe, just a piece, and then came in with a lighter version of brown and put that in. So you can see the eye doesn't have the same type of an outline, but that's because it's a watercolor. It's a little bit non-real, it's very much non-realistic, but it's still there, and that's how you put it in. So by using the off color to draw attention to it, a muted gold and the brown, you have what you're looking for in the eye. Okay. We're going to go to realistic bunnies next. Realistic, well, sort of realistic bunnies. There's realistic bunnies, okay? And there's many different eyes in this bunnies on a fence, and many different shapes of the noses. The predominant one is this one here. So what was done, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. There's a lot going on. So here's the nose, here's the point. It's in a straight line. Here's the outline, but it breaks here. Your eye finishes it, I understand that, but there's no dark brown loop here. That's important. You don't have to tell the viewer everything. Let the viewer's eye finish it. So there, that sets it up to set it up with the jawline. Here is a piece of dyed wool. Here we go back with the softness of the dyed wool. It's broken up in the corner to accentuate the shape. Then comes the eye, there comes the glint. So the eye is pointing down where it should. Second bunny, this is a good one if you want to practice your bunny eyes, because you've got 5 bunnies to practice on. This bunny, this eye's not showing, so the proportion is to here, but it's not a full eye. So here's a half eye. You've come down here with your dark, cut a really small section. Here's your glint, there's your fill-in. But you need this little piece here to draw attention back to the eye. And here you go, just like that. This coming up from the nose, this dark line coming up from the nose, sets up the direction of hooking, sets it up to put the eye in. That's very important. So the nose goes in first, the little V, the V sets it up, you hook this in, and that sets you up for the eye. So there is what we'll call a half eye or a glancing eye. The next bunny is very concerned about if somebody's got a carrot. That's my take on it. So again, here's the nose, but this is a more muddled eye, which is fine. The eye is more muddled. It is still dark, but not as dark. He's kind of the smallest bunny. You don't want to draw a lot of attention to the eye. So again, not finished. It's in a half circle. The browns are here and here. There's the glint, there's a drop. This bunny's head shape and nose are different than this bunny. The shape of the eye is completely different. Notice the nose. Notice how it comes up. There's no black to give you the direction. So this dark brown was put in. This dark brown sets up the eye. And this doesn't matter if it's a bunny, a horse, a dog. You look from the nose to the eye. And then you come up into here, not a hard line, it's broken. Come around here, again, not all the way around. It's not a black eye, it's broken right here. Fill in, glint. There's your eye, proportion to the nose. This guy here, he had a lot of good placement. Here's his nose. So here's the one outline. Here's the second outline. So this is why it's important to hook the eye last. You've put everything in. So here's your outline like this. Here's your bunny. Now you can fill in. So you fill in, you fill around. Now you go into the eye. So the eye comes around to here and then to here. It's broken. Again, it's not a ring. There's your bunny color, a little bit of dark brown, your glint. Again, proportionate to the nose. This sets it up for the direction of hooking. Very important. So this gives you a lot of different examples on how to hook the eyes by taking your cues from the nose. Okay? So as you're doing this, and if you're especially going to sculpt, you need to be able to continually look and clean. Now, what you also clean it off, brush it off. That's why I have the brush here. So if you want to, you have to brush it to keep it going. If you want to see where the glint is and you're putting it in with an Arctic gray or a string, use your brush and take your brush and flick it so that you can see it. It will get muddled, especially if you're going to sculpt the eye. If you're going to sculpt the eye, right after you sculpt it, you're going to take your brush and you're going to clean it out, take that off, shake it off, and see where you are. You have to go into the different pieces to make sure. It's not something you should rush. It's not something you need to take out 100 times. It may look odd at first, finish hooking the piece, and then you can come back and adjust if you want to, but you don't have to. So these are important things with the eyes. You need your reference books. These are your tools. These are as much as your tools as anything else. Make sure you tuck them in. They give you all the clues that you want, all the clues you need, and especially this book. So these should all be in your repertoire. And as I'm looking at this beautiful cover, I've actually seen the rug and it's of course more gorgeous in person. But look, here's the nose. Look at the proportion to the nose. Look how these actually create the loop from the end of the black to this. This one is shorter than this one. Why? It tilts the head. Do you want your head to tilt? The eyes do play an important part, but they play an important part with the nose. And once the nose is in and what's hooked around, your direction of your eye becomes very clear. And if you have to highlight it with a little more cream, a little bit lighter from the nose to make it turn, you can. And notice the glint. The glint isn't by the black, it's on top to give that direction so he's looking right at you. So I hope that by going over this and giving you the tools to do animal eyes, you will endeavor to do them and send us pictures or post pictures on Rug Hooking Magazine community of the eyes that you have hooked. I hope you all have a wonderful June. I hope you travel safely, and I look forward to seeing you in July. Bye for now.